Alright, should be making a video. So another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, video presentation. And such. Yes, it's all quite tiresome. Yes, I just have to keep doing this over and over, and it's just so unrewarding. But anyway, it's what life is like on planet Earth. So, first I'll do Blue Moonshine, and then apparently the Despard is going to argue that his rubber band gimmick is not a gimmick. And so I'll play some of that, and just go over the fact that this is all just dishonest in the sense that we know there's clearly, at least at minimum, conflicting experimental results. And all of that fog, everybody should have an interest in clearing, the viewability and to see the truth. And it's just funny how clearly they're not interested in that clarity. But anyway, so this Blue Moonshine, why he's commenting on my videos, I can only presume it's because he is a psychotic, and he's not arguing anything. He's not providing any physics arguments at all. So it's just a waste of time. But anyway, let's indulge some of it. Gary clearly doesn't understand his own native language, so yeah, whatever that means. It's hard to even respond in a civil manner to this crap. But anyway, another response video to the despicably dishonest Professor Valerie of Xavier University. So I just posted what I described the last video as. In this video, he very ineffectively attempts to put words in Newton's mouth, and that's all these people are doing. I mean, they won't concede that Newton said exactly what I said. Twice the force, twice the velocity, 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. It's exactly Newton's statement. It's my statement. You can't separate the two statements. It's impossible. If I'm wrong, Newton's wrong. Showing complete disrespect for one of the greatest scientists ever. Then attempts to defend the obvious garbage experiment he did. I point out the obvious lying subterfuge and also remark that his insanely poor behavior adds credibility to my argument that the science of physics is incredible and anti-credible, just using their own kinds of terminology like antimatter and whatnot. Just quite silly. So his response is this, whatever, one sentence. You do realize that everybody who sees the actual experiment, so I showed the actual experiment, it clearly has a software glitch. I mean, not to admit that there's a software glitch is just insanely dishonest. I mean, there's nothing else you could say about that. A credible physicist would not want that glitch to exist. They'd be uncomfortable if they had produced a result and it had that glitch in it. So it's just bullshit right from the start. And your responses are perfectly aware, that you are a liar, right? So again, what statements did I make that were a lie? I pointed out what Newton actually said, and I pointed out that doxing is retarded, and only a mean, nasty person would resort to it, and somebody who doesn't have an argument, obviously. You don't resort to those kind of tactics if you can make solid arguments. Why would you bother with that kind of nonsense? So, but anyway. So I respond, time will tell. I'm sure the experiment will get honestly done. So, yeah, I mean, these experiments are just not that complicated, and somebody will do them. The Mythbusters accidentally did them, so eventually somebody is going to do them credibly, and the truth will be seen. All right, with 3 or 4 rubber bands, hopefully with springs, not rubber bands, just because rubber bands do have some flaws. And you will be known for what you are. So, I mean, the truth will be out. It'll be demonstrated that his results weren't consistent with the actual physics, that he contrived the results, and that'll be the truth. So he says, you want to bet? And, I found that intriguing, frankly. And I say, gee, what, yeah, good idea, let's. So this is almost a subject in itself. Anyway, I'll read what I wrote and then I'll add to it. Uh, the a big giant wager might generate some audience interest. Veritasium made a $10,000 bet and got some views out of it. How about we bet on the experiment that it takes 9 pounds of force to move a 1 pound object 3 times faster than 1 pound of force will move it? So again, that's the better experiment. Doing the 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 relationships just expose the MV squared for what it is, nonsense. So it's a lot easier to detect in these experiments with much greater masses, velocities. The problem is finding someone honest to do the experiment. So he didn't respond to that at all. So he says, want to bet? I basically say, sure. And what I'd like to say even is that it'd be nice to expand it to the audience. Expand it to, I really have an interest in actually understanding how many people actually believe it takes 25 times the force to spin something 5 times as fast, or to make a car go 5 times as fast, or to make anything happen 5 times faster. I have to put in 25 times more energy or force. I'd just like to know how many people really think that happens in this universe. Because clearly it doesn't. I mean, nowhere in your life experience are you going to find this problem, that you have to use this insane amount of energy, to cut a piece of wood or to do any kind of work. And that somehow you save a tremendous amount by doing something much slower velocity. That somehow the slower velocity gets is so much more efficient, because you have to spend so much extra energy to get it done quickly. Yeah, no, it's not the reality at all. And it just amazes me that the argument comes down to this. That is the argument. And their expectation is that you're an idiot on, if you actually think there's some reason to doubt it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast, they think you're being an idiot. Now, Newton clearly didn't believe it, because he clearly didn't ever said anything like that. He didn't say it takes 4 times the energy to go twice as fast, as I just quoted him. And it doesn't take 9 times the energy to go 3 times as fast, and it doesn't take 4 times the energy to go 5 times as fast. This crap doesn't happen. Just like when you fall in gravity, okay, you collected the gravity in units of time. The units of time are consistent with your units of velocity, and that's all you got. 2 units of force from gravity is 2 units of velocity. There's nothing else. You didn't get 4 units of force. You only got 2. Oh, that's amazing. All right, so then he says, why don't you do the experiment yourself? So he just changes the subject. He says, want to bet? And then he changes the subject entirely. And I've already answered this question, right, over and over again. I've explained I have limited space. I don't have tools. It's not my job to do these experiments. I don't have the high-speed camera. I don't have the air track. I don't have any of this equipment. Why hasn't regular science done these experiments? You are the one who wants to prove something. Well, apparently you don't want to. Your science says it doesn't have to. So it has 350 years to prove your theory, and all you have is denting clay experiments. What else do you have in the chronicles of your MV squared proof? What do you have except de Chardillet's fraud experiments denting clay with round objects? You have nothing. So anyway, it is your duty to provide that proof. So it's just such a hypocrisy. So I point out clearly, oh, wrong button. All right, why don't you do the experiment yourself? I have done some experiments myself, but as I have repeatedly pointed out, I have less than ideal instruments and materials and space to conduct experiments. The relevant question is, why hasn't the science of physics been inspired to do these basic experiments? The fact that you can't link to any experiment showing 3 times the velocity doing 9 times the work proves your science is a religion. The clearer proof is your evasion of every one of my arguments. Hooke's law says what Newton said, twice the force, twice the velocity. The law of the lever says you must conserve momentum, yet you claim that a half mass at 2 distances only moves with 1.4 the velocity. I mean, this is a 2,000-year-old law of the lever. They're challenging it overtly. Steve Mould stated the law of the lever doesn't work. that all you can get back, from a 2 mass going 1 velocity, all you can get back from a 1 velocity is 1.4. I mean, 1 mass. It's a 1.4 the velocity. You're going to lose the momentum, a third of the momentum. Destroying 1/3 the momentum. Reversing that experiment, you say it's possible to create free momentum. I mean, obviously, a 1 mass going 1.4 the velocity isn't going to create a 2 mass going 1. That's free momentum. So that's a pretty amazing statement you're attempting to defend, and you should do it with a piece of evidence. Is that asking too much? No, of course it's not asking too much. Any reasonable person would say that's not asking too much. You're at the trial, you're going to prove your point. Well, where's your evidence? Don't you have to have any evidence? You just have talk? You just have, well, I did a mathematical equation that I contrived to produce my answer. Yeah, that's nothing. That's not a proof of anything. All right, so I point out the Mythbusters crashed cars at 50 miles an hour and 100 miles an hour. No evidence of 4 times the crushing, just twice. They simulated the experiment with clay and got the same result. So, I mean, it is a piece of good evidence. I mean, they didn't do the experiments perfectly, but, well, the car crashing was done as well as you can do it. And, no evidence. They have this silly theory that the cars just happened to crush coincidentally. The resistance to crushing applied itself just perfectly consistent with conservation of momentum. It's just a perfect coincidence that it came out, that the resistance to crushing was exactly what's required to produce the, twice the crushing result. It wasn't 2.5 or 3 or 3.2. There wasn't any, no, it was just right on the momentum line. That's just a coincidence. I mean, come on. All right, they simulated the experiment. Okay, got the same result. You have an air track and you have done next to nothing with it. Okay, it's just an absolute fact. They got this air track. They don't bounce carts around. They don't do much of anything. They do their standard experiments, their standard way, because that's what they've contrived to produce results that are consistent with their theory. And if they mess around, do any other experiments, they're going to find out it's all bullshit. Just the simple experiment of, pushing a cart into a compression that's the same, and have it push against the rigid piece of the air track and launch it, and then have 2 carts launch, and you'll find that the one cart goes twice the velocity, meaning it has more kinetic energy than the other 2 carts. That somehow you made more kinetic energy again. With the same spring compression, you create different amounts of kinetic energy. How could that possibly be reasonable in a world where you say there has to be a law of conservation? I mean, it's, well, like I said, I've been over this and over this. Why don't you try 3 rubber bands? And more pointedly, why don't you try 4? So why didn't he do that experiment? He's right there. He's claiming it takes 4 rubber bands to go twice as fast. I mean, I'm obviously arguing that's insane. 3 rubber bands, you'll go much faster than twice as fast. So, I mean, the game would be over with 3, but 4 is certainly, it's well over. And you're going to be, you won't get to 4 times the velocity, but you're going to get more than 3 velocity out of it. There was a clear glitch in your software, yet you pretend the experiment was perfect. You're clearly not a defender of the scientific method. I mean, obviously somebody who believes in the scientific method, being careful, being redundant, wouldn't be applauding these experiments as proof of anything. It's crappy science. Anybody with integrity and honesty should admit it's crappy science. And it just shows how crappy human beings are, that they won't admit this is bad science. All right, you are the one who wants to prove something. I've already proven that your physics doesn't do any relevant experiments, and the very few they do, they perversely interpret. So you could argue about the 2-slit experiment. I think I pointed out here about, well, it's in the next comment, I think. I have offered numerous channels with high-speed cameras and other such quality testing equipment $500 to do some of these basic experiments in the high quality manner they deserve to be done. So obviously I am for experiments and I'm willing to pay to have them done. Now, where are these people offering to contribute money to? Are they offering to help finance better experiments? No. Are they really interested in the truth and getting the truth? No. They're interested in selling a religion. All right, it is your duty to prove that proof. It is your duty to provide that proof. And I say, this is your hilarious duplicity. My religion must be proven. Your religion must merely be accepted without evidence. I mean, it's just so obvious, the double standard here. They don't have to provide any evidence. Again, we have to go to the Mythbusters accidentally doing a kinetic energy experiment. They weren't even doing it on purpose. Their purpose was to somehow pretend that a 50-mile-an-hour crash is the same as a 100-mile-an-hour crash. And, it's certainly not the same for somebody who's in between the two cars. It might be the same for the drivers, but it's not going to be the same for the person in between the two. All right. Now I guess got my replies in the way. So he responds. I stated the relevant question is, why hasn't science of physics been inspired to do these basic experiments? And he says, is this a joke? Question mark. Newton's second law. So twice the velocity, twice the force, 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. I mean, you can just switch it back and forth. It doesn't matter. He says that's been proven. Yeah, right. Okay. Obviously they haven't tested it. They haven't tested the outcome at all. That's why we're sitting here arguing about it. It's because there are no tests. All right. Has been tested experimentally to incredible accuracy for nearly 400 years. Now, where are, I do beg for the link, but I'm just saying, isn't this such a lie? Is this a joke? No, there's no joke here. For 10 years, I'm asking for somebody to find the link where you actually tested this MV squared crap, where you actually showed where you collected this stuff. I point out how you can't collect it with a spaceship. You can't collect it with a ballistic pendulum. I argue you'd have no lever experiment showing it's only 1.4 on the other side, that somehow a 1 mass going 1.4 is the same as a 2 mass going 1. Well, that certainly hasn't been proven anywhere. You can't do it with pulleys. You can't do it with hydraulics. You can't do it with gears. You can't do it with anything. You haven't produced any experimental evidence. It's just such an incredible lie. And you're sitting here. How can you have a conversation or an argument? How can you have anything coherent with a person capable of providing this preposterous a lie? Can you see that? Yeah, it's such a preposterous lie. Oh, all right. So then I stated, your religion must merely be accepted without evidence. And he says, LOL. And then this crap again. 400 years of daily tests for classic Newton mechanics. Where are these tests? Where did you prove that 1 pound dropped 4 feet is the same as, 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same weight or same pressure or same impact force as 1 pound dropped 4 feet? Where is that experiment? Where did you prove that somewhere in your 400 years? Even an experiment that simple they haven't done. Then I've talked about all the ones where you just turn a scale sideways and, you can do all kinds of experiments they haven't done. I mean, what a lie. And he says 120 years daily test of quantum mechanics. Yeah, we know what those tests are made out of. It's a double slit experiment. You shoot electrons at a solid crystal with no slits in it, and you call it a double slit experiment. Yeah, okay. That's fair. No, that's silly. All right, 120 years of daily tests for Einstein's relativity. So again, where are these actual tests that have something to do with actual assumptions that can be trusted? I mean, your assumption that atomic clocks can never be defective, that they can never break. Nothing you could do to an atomic clock will make it read the wrong time. Where has that been proven? In the meantime, your religion is completely destroyed theoretically within 20 seconds of a theoretical thoughts and 1 minute of experimental tests. So none of that has taken place. If the counter-arguments existed, then they'd be demonstrated and shown to me. So where are they? Where are these great arguments explaining how you've tested levers and proven that they conserve kinetic energy and they destroy momentum? I mean, understand there's just no way to blame heat for the loss of energy in a lever. So when you destroy the momentum, you have to explain where the hell it is. You can't just say it disappeared from the universe. So where's your theoretical grounding to do that? Where's your theoretical grounding to actually state that it's possible to make momentum completely disappear and to create free momentum out of nothing? All right, Newton's second law. I mean, the lever experiment proves it's not a reverse direction thing anymore. You know, you can't make this silly argument that there's some kind of reverse in the direction, because the lever always reverses the direction. I put a 2 mass in on one side and have a 2 mass 1 unit of distance. You know, it goes, I get what I put in, I get back out minus the little bit the lever steals. So there's no argument that direction has anything to do with it. And so you're stuck with this proposition that you put a 1 mass going 1.4 2 units of distance, and somehow you're going to get a 2 mass going 1, which has 33% more momentum. How the fuck can you defend the creation of free momentum? All right, so anyway, so I quote him. Newton's second law, yes, F equals ma, has been tested experimentally to incredible accuracy for 400 years. And I said, link me to the incredibly accurate experiment showing it takes 9 times the force to move something 3 times as fast. Show me the incredibly accurate experiment demonstrating something moving 5 times as fast does 25 times the work. And then I say once again, this is Newton's second law. And I repeat the second law. If any force generates a motion, a double force will generate double the motion. A triple force will force triple the motion. So, I mean, it's clearly in his words. It's clearly in the statement. It's exactly my same exact statement. I'm making that statement. They're saying I'm wrong for making that statement. So why is it when Newton says it's okay, when I say it, it's not okay? Explain your duplicity in claiming I am wrong to say that and Newton is right to say it. It's just such a pile of duplicity. All right, and then I deal with the 400-year bullshit. Link me to any experiment showing conservation of mv squared using levers or pulleys or gears or hydraulics. And I could have just said ... I guess I did. You have, and then I go on to the quantum one, and I say you have no quantum mechanics experiments that prove anything beyond how physicists can't honestly describe any experiment. Is shooting electrons at a crystal the same thing as shooting them at 2 slits? Question mark. I mean, this is their lies. They'll actually, these physicists will constantly say, oh, we did it with electrons. They didn't shoot electrons through slits. I mean, just absolute bullshit. And then on the third Einstein relativity one, I ask him, have you read Eddington's journal? Because clearly in that journal, he points out basically how his experiment proving Einstein right was a pile of steaming garbage. Really bad science. All right, so then he said this crap about my theory being destroyed, and I said, let me just see if there's anything in the comments. All right, nothing. Nothing indicating the sound isn't working or something anyway. Okay, you've had 350 years to produce credible scientific experimental evidence, and you can't link to anything. And that's the absolute fact. On none of these subjects can they link me to a single fucking piece of experimental evidence that's worth a damn. They can't. They won't. They can't. Whatever the reason is, right? I can't debunk their evidence because they can't show me any. All right. The Mythbusters crash cars. Have you seen that video? So he didn't answer my questions at all. Zero evidence of conservation of kinetic energy. Show more replies. All right. So then he just leaves nothing. There's just nothing. Okay. So he says, link me to, and he goes, LOL. Yeah. I mean, what the fuck is that? Let's see. How do you think? So then just changes the subject. So they just goes, this is all just gibberish. So I didn't even bother responding to it because I have responded to it in other videos, and I don't have an obligation to tutor him personally. Let's see. How do you think we can predict the exact minute of a solar eclipse 100 years in advance? Well, that's right, and that's Newton's physics. Newton, as I quoted from in the other video, that was a response to you, right in the video response to you that you watched and critiqued here in comments, I pointed out that Newton described gravity as a time-dependent force repeatedly. And so he did it by understanding it as a time-dependent force, not a distant-dependent force. And that's how he got right answers, fuckface. That's how it happened. Not your way, his way. All right. How do you think my GPS is capable of giving me very precise directions to your lair? Well, yeah, so he's talking about my address again. Yeah. What is that? So you don't think I could find your house? You really do. Is that what you want me to do, is make videos where I kind of imply to my audience that if you have some really terrible day and you feel like doing something really stupid, here's an address to go to? Is that what I'm supposed to be doing in my videos, you fucking piece of shit? Is implying somebody should give a shit where you live? God, what a piece of fucking garbage this man is. All right. So obviously GPS is bullshit, okay? They don't use Einstein's fucking equations to, modify the clocks. They just change the goddamn time on the clocks. And again, there's nothing about that proves Einstein's silly relativity or his bent space or his bent time or any of that crap. All it proves is clocks can break. How do you think we are capable of predicting the value of an anonymous geometric moment of an electron with precision of one? Because the experiment is circular. You already know what your experiment is measuring, and then you predict because you have a measuring thing right on the experiment. So there's nothing amazing about this at all. It's just such bullshit. This is some silly scatter experiment they do with electrons, and then they claim they're measuring some number to the 10th decimal place, and it's all that's dependent is they just keep waiting for their machine to keep telling them what the right answer is. I mean, it's ridiculous physics. Let's see. How do you think we're capable of sending a robot to Mars? So again, and what exactly in my theory or what I've stated would prohibit a robot getting to Mars? Oh, that's right. Absolutely nothing. Everything I'm arguing about the time dependency of gravity is an absolute fact. It's an absolute fact about how orbits work. The faster you go through a gravitational field, the less gravity you will experience. That's an absolute fact. You're the one arguing against that absolute fact. You're the one saying it doesn't matter how fast I go. It just matters how long I'm in gravity, and I'll bend exactly the same amount no matter how fast I go. I'll crash through ice. It just doesn't matter how fast I go across it. I can't stop the ice from breaking. I mean, those are your arguments, you lying sack of shit. And then to bring up SpaceX is hilarious. How do you think SpaceX is capable of catching their boosters with chopsticks? Yeah, and this rocket will never ever do anything. That's my prediction. This stupid rocket will never ever do anything useful in the history of human space travel. Because it's a piece of shit. Okay. It will never, ever be used by a human being. There's no human dumb enough to ever get in that piece of garbage. All right, anyway. In the meantime, you are incapable of predicting the speed of a car if its initial speed is 15 meters per second and it accelerates. How am I incapable of predicting this? It was just an idiotic argument. Absolute nonsense. Try to do that with your F equals mv. So again, he's saying that change of velocity means that somehow mv means that how I accelerate a car, which isn't by gravity. So let's understand, if you want to accelerate a car, you have to keep, if you want a constant acceleration in a car, you have to keep accelerating the pedal. You have to keep adding acceleration. You can't just go this and it's 30 miles an hour forever. That doesn't happen. All right, can you even get the correct speed with a single digital precision? I bet you don't even understand the question. The question has absolutely nothing. There's absolutely nothing about understanding gravity as a time-dependent force that has any application whatsoever. And again, you're the one claiming it takes 25 times the fuel to go 5 times as fast. Why don't you show me it doing that. You could do me equations. Give me the equation. How many joules of energy do I need to take an average car of say 1,500 pounds and move it 30 miles an hour? Right? You're going to come up with some insanely silly number that isn't going to be anywhere near the truth, and that's going to be the absolute fact. I won't have to put that much gas in. So to have that competition, you already lost that competition. Because there's no fucking way it takes 25 times the fuel to get a car to 50 miles an hour. No fucking way. All right, so anyway, I say your answer is totally unresponsive. You answered none of my questions and are asking questions I've answered many times in many videos. I'm not here to personally tutor you. You clearly have no evidence to back up your religious claims you've made. That is obvious. You clearly perversely interpreted Newton's exact words. You're made that obvious. Time for you to go back to your own channel because your lying and deceit is not appreciated here. You're just wasting my time with your obvious evasions. Then he says, do you realize that everyone who reads this will see your videos can see how you are cowardly fleeing from the overwhelming evidence? So just understand, I'm begging for the evidence. I'm begging to see the experimental evidence. And he produced a link to nothing in this whole conversation. Nothing. Okay. And then I argue. I'm going to read this comment section in a video which will prove beyond any doubt to the reasonable, that you are in fact a delusionary, insane person. So, please do so and keep making a fool of yourself. This is very entertaining. So again, that's his definition of entertaining, is this kind of crap. You know, having to go through this slop to get to any kind of rationally formed evidentiary process, and he just won't participate in anything called science. His science is, I'll threaten you, I'll abuse you, I'll extort you, I will talk shit at you, but I will never make a rational argument. And of course he'll do that while he slanders Isaac Newton. He thinks he has the right to tell Newton what he believed. You know, that's so obnoxious and arrogant. It's disgusting is what it is. And he doesn't have to have the courage to say he doesn't agree with Newton. Even though Newton's saying exactly what I'm saying. The exact same thing I'm saying is the exact same thing Newton said. Twice the force, twice the velocity, 3 times the force, 3 times the velocity. It's exactly the way I would say it. And it's just amazing that they are pretending I'm wrong and Newton's right when we're saying exactly the same thing. All right. So now we have to waste some time on the dispar stuff. All right, so this was, I didn't play his video, okay, but he's claiming that somehow I did this wrong. Now, my understanding of Pythagorean, okay, is pretty, it's pretty rudimentary. All right, but the idea is a squared, okay, plus b squared equals c squared, right? And so the simple argument is if I'm going to double my a, okay, then I'm going to create a new hypotenuse, all right, that will be more than double in terms of the amount of increase. So if we said this was the increase from here, then the point is this is going to be the increase from here. This line will be 5, this line will be 5, this line will be 5. And this is the increase, and this is the increase. So, I mean, when I did the numbers, it was, pretty obvious. So if I make this a 5, and I make this a 1, okay, 5 squared is 25, 1 squared is 1, so I get 26. So for this for this 1, right, for this line, it's now going to be 5.099. So that's what this length is. This line is going to be 5.099. So we know what 1 unit of distance, we know how much more stretch. So this is the extra stretch in the rubber band. That's it. You know, we could say 0.1 just to round it off. 0.1 is the extra stretch for 1 unit of distance. And obviously 2 units of distance should be 0.2. Okay. Now the simple argument is okay, if I make this 2 units, now that's 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 25 is 29. The square root of 29, okay, is this hypotenuse. And, you know, that number comes out to be 5.38 something, 455. Now, obviously, that's not, okay, twice 0.99. That's not 0.2. That's 0.38. That's, like, huge. So 0.2 does not equal 0.384. That's the obvious argument. And it gets worse and worse as you go along. So that's what I did. Now, I think that's legitimate math. Okay, but yeah, I'm not a mathematician. I'll concede I don't like math much. I don't have a whole lot of appreciation for all the convolutions and all the symbolic language that they have in math. You know, all of these equations inside of equations. They put little hats on things, and then they have double dots on things, and they have all kinds of strange and bizarre notations. So yeah, I don't really like it much. All right, but that's Pythagorean theory as I understood it. So maybe he's going to prove I have Pythagorean theory wrong. So we'll go find the video, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that. But let's see what he does. All right, so I'll put that up. I guess I will put the video in.
So first 1 minute and 20.
One of these here little boxes, yeah, and don't worry about the. Come on, make it a little bigger, I guess. All right. So let's see what he does.
Seconds of draft science babble.
I'm trying to get a response in source. I didn't watch this video, but I could see it, so I didn't check his channel.
I can't hear any of that, so obviously we have some kind of volume issue I'll have to deal with.
Quite a while. Now he's still doing experiments, all right, where he's using rubber bands that are stretched in this form. So the rubber bands are put across, and he's comparing how much you swing something in and moves rubber bands some more distance. And so as I pointed out, as I did the math, which I'm not a big fan of realistically.
Oh, so you're not a big fan of math? Well, that already was pretty obvious.
I can figure out you can't do this.
Yeah. So far there's no argument here. Okay. So, yeah, wasted time.
This way. You can't measure how much you push in because it's proportional to how much you're stretching the rubber bands. So let's say he has the integrity to accept the truth that Pythagorean theory says so. It doesn't take that much work to figure this out. Okay, that this length is not proportional to that length, and that this hypotenuse rho is disproportional to that length. And so the numbers again, let's see this. So if I did it in 1 unit of distance, okay, and 2 units of distance, and 3 units of distance, and 4 units of distance, the numbers came out. So this was, let's just say this is 5 centimeters. Doesn't really matter what number we use. Okay, so you start off at 5.0. The 1 unit of distance. All right, you end up with 5.099. All right, so this is your 1 unit of distance. This is what 1 unit of distance, 1 mark equals 0.99 stretch in the rubber band. That's how much it does. And then 2 units of distance, you get this huge jump, okay, to 5.385. Obviously,
so
almost 4 times the 99. So it's a lot more than what it should be, which is twice. So this is 2 units, this is 1 unit, this is 0 units of distance. All right, so go line here. All right, and then 3. Okay, your number gets really big. Okay, so now we're going 8. Okay, 3 0.
So you could stop right here and explain how those numbers are wrong, and everything will be done. So why are you playing the whole thing?
Units of distance, and then we did 3, so huge disproportion, gigantic. And then you end up with, for the fourth, 6.403. So now you're a whole, 14 more. So it's only 4 times the stretch, 4 times the distance, but you're at 14 times the stretch in the actual rubber band. You stretch the rubber band 14 times the distance. All right.
All right, so a lot of things needs to be said, and I'm going to need your focus. Keep concentrated, because it's going to be a lot.
Why does that have to be a lot? I did it in 3 minutes. But whatever. It's Pythagorean. It's either is or isn't. So you really can't disagree with it, but go ahead, disagree.
When you have a rubber band stretched between 2 poles, let's say it's 5 centimeters here. The rubber band measures 5 centimeters, and then I let a pendulum swing against it with 1 unit of velocity. And let's say it then stretches backwards with 1 centimeter. So 1 unit of velocity, 1 centimeter of linear stretch.
All right, so he's just going to prove how really dumb he is because he still hasn't figured out that he's got to measure the actual stretch of the rubber band. The hypotenuse is the stretch of the rubber band. So, I mean, how could you... I've done this 3 times now. I've explained it 3 fucking times now. You're measuring how much the rubber band actually stretches. And so for 1 unit of distance, it stretches 0.99. For 2 units of distance, it stretches 0.385. So you got a real problem there because 3.385 it clearly isn't 0.2.
So it stretches in this way. That's 1 centimeter. And then when I let the pendulum swing with twice the velocity.
We don't care about any of this. All we care about is your understanding of how much the rubber band is stretching versus how much distance you're moving one of the arms of that triangle. And that the 2 things aren't proportional. 1 unit of distance this way on the triangle is not equal to 1 unit of extra distance on the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse increases by more than 1 unit of distance, meaning the rubber band itself was stretched further. I mean, this guy insults people's intelligence and calls them idiots and morons, and he can't get this. I mean, I drew it.
As I have demonstrated with physical evidence, it stretches with twice the amount of linear distance, 2 centimeter. And then when I let the pendulum swing with 3 times the velocity, as I have demonstrated, it will...
Oh, okay, so again, he's not even getting the point. You haven't demonstrated the rubber band stretched 2 units of stretch. The rubber band itself stretched more. I only did one side. Obviously, both sides of the rubber band are stretching proportionally, so it's the same on both sides. But the point is that it was 0.99, right? That means, well, for one stretch, each side of the rubber band's doing 0.99. But with 2 units, 2 centimeters, as you're saying, one side's moving 0.385, and the other side is 0.385, which adds up to 7.69 or whatever. Way above 2.
You pull back very close to 3 times as much linear stretch. Okay? So 1 unit of velocity gives us 1 unit of linear stretch. 2 units of velocity gives us twice the amount, or 2 units of linear.
No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. The whole point is that the linear for the rubber band is on this hypotenuse. The rubber band is not going straight across, and it's not doing that. It's doing the hypotenuse, for fuck's sake. How could he be this dumb? God damn. And the great thing is, though, if he has any honesty or integrity, this will be a real test, right? Because he did the experiment, did all his I proved, and now he has to recalculate all of that stuff and basically admit the experiment proves me 100% correct. So his experiment actually proved me 100% correct. He did it wrong. He calculated wrong. All right, and let's see if he has the integrity to admit he proved me right, okay, and that now he has to debunk his own experiment because he proved me right doing it. If you do it honest, it proves me right, just like his stupid milk carton experiment that he never redid. Because if you do it right, it proves me right.
Stretch. 3 times the velocity gives us 3 times, or 3 units of linear stretch.
So he just keeps measuring the wrong part of the triangle. I mean, how many fucking times do I have to draw it? But I mean, do you really need it in different colors? Do I have to really point out that the rubber band, okay, is these measurements are nothing. They're meaningless. This is the rubber band stretching. The rubber band stretching from this point to this point, and from that point to obviously that point on the other side. Okay. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. All right. This is the rubber band, okay? This is the part you have to measure. Measuring this, the very argument, the Pythagorean argument is, this is not proportional to this. They do not increase at the same rate. When you increase this by 1, you increase this by 3 or 4. That's the problem here. This extra isn't proportional. So when I go 2 units of distance, this won't be proportionally twice the stretch. This is going to be almost 4x the stretch. It's going to be 4 times this distance. 4 times an increase in this distance. You know, well, this is the one you really want because this is the first one. So this was the 99. Again, I'll write it again. 99 versus 385. Obviously, 99 is not divisible into 385 and you don't get 2. What you get is 3 point something. You get a lot more than 2. 3.84. That's what you get. You almost get 4. It's almost 4 times the energy in the rubber band. 4 times the stretch. Oh, I'll just sit here and just wallow on this one for a while. I didn't think he'd be this stupid. I honestly thought he might have, maybe I was wrong. I mean, maybe I didn't know how to do Pythagorean theory right. But he doesn't even understand the concept. He's not doing any Pythagorean math at all. He's not understanding the rubber band is on the hypotenuse. Oh, fuck. What a dumbass. Oh, he's so arrogant. You know, he's just so wrong. God damn, I just hate this planet of lying scum. Let's see, where's the chat? It's one of these things. There it is. Alright. So I'll have a little nicotine, see if a chatter can say something. I guess there's nobody here. I don't know, Wednesday nights aren't any good either. It's so funny how the videos just have such irregular viewership. Can't see what you draw. Oh, okay. That I should have noticed. Thanks for the pointing it out. It's a very nice drawing. You know, it's too bad I wasted it. So, I mean, you know, and I dropped my pen. So obviously, the hypotenuse is where the rubber band is. Okay, it's not on this line. It's not going to stretch. No, it's not on this line. This is the line that the rubber band is increasing on. And here's the plain and simple numbers. 1 unit of this way creates 0.99 stretch in this rubber band. More. You get 0.99 more stretch. And in just 2 units of distance, you're way up to 0.385. So you've got almost 4 times the extra stretch in the rubber band. You've now stretched the rubber band 4 extra units of distance. 1 unit look like, you know, and now you're 4 units. Not 2, 4. Almost 4. So obvious. Yeah, I'm sorry, you know, I shouldn't have blown. Well, anyway, I drew it before, I think. I mean, the idea is you do, you know, they're right triangles. So it's, you know, a squared, b squared equals c squared, hypotenuse squared. And it's just obvious these are the right numbers. That's what you end up with. So maybe they're going to say Pythagoras was wrong. He actually said it in Latin or something, and you know, so I saw some other, you know, he wrote it in hieroglyphics, and we read the hieroglyphics wrong. I'm really surprised. I mean, I've presented the argument 4 times, 3 times that he saw anyway, maybe. At least 2 times that he saw. And all I talked about was Pythagorean theory. How could he miss the point? You know, he's making a video where he's not even going to talk about the fact that this is about Pythagorean geometry. Yeah, well, if he's going to be arrogant about how I don't know math and I'm this and I'm that, then, you know, he shouldn't make these kind of mistakes, right? I mean, that's such an obvious mistake to make. I mean, he never even considered whether the stretch in the rubber band was proportional to the distance he was moving the rubber band. He never even considered it. I always have to consider these variables, right? Every single time they do an experiment, I'm the one that has to point out, like, they didn't notice the rotation, in Brozo's experiment. There was a tiny bit of rotation. I'm the one who noticed it. They can't notice anything.
Okay, but so now draft science says this is not the total amount of stretch. It's not linear. It's not 1 centimeter of stretch, 2 centimeters of stretch,
Yeah, it's
3
not.
centimeters of stretch. This is linear. Draft science says no. Total amount of rubber band stretch is not linear. It's non-linear. Because we have to take into consideration these lines.
Yes. There you go.
As we pull the rubber band backwards with 1 centimeter each time, these lengths grow non-linearly.
Right.
So when we start with 5 centimeter,
Right.
when we pull it back with 1 centimeter, the total distance here, if you measure these lines, I've measured it with my ruler, it becomes 5.4 centimeters.
Oh, 5
So-
point wrong. It's wrong. It's not 5.4. How could you get 5.4? I mean, how could he get that number? 25 squared is 25, plus 1 squared is 1. How could he get that number? Well, anyway, we'll just see.
From 5 to 5.4, that is an extra of 0.4 centimeters. Right? When you then pull it backwards with 2 centimeters, the total length of this and this becomes 6.4. So we start with 5, from 5 to 6.4, which is an extra of 1.4 centimeters. Now 1.4 centimeters is 3.5 times as much as 0.4 centimeters. So draft science says, oh, the total amount of stretch here is 3.5 times as much stretch than this one.
Yeah, it's more than that, actually. It's 3.84.
So even though you only pull it back with twice the amount of linear distance, the total stretch isn't twice as much. It's 3.5 times as much stretch. So it's 3.5 times as much energy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. So it's close to 4, right? So kinetic energy says twice the amount of stretch, 4 times the energy. So draft science says, no, it's not twice the amount of stretch. It's 3.5.
The rubber band isn't stretched twice as much, you fucking idiot. You're stretched the rubber band 4 times as much. God damn, he keeps doing the same bullshit. Oh, God, he's so stupid. Well, you don't need to see this, do you? Okay, I'll put it back on. So he's conceding the hypotenuse is a longer line, but he's not conceding the rubber band is stretched more.
5 times the amount of stretch, or yeah, close to 4 times the amount of stretch. So 4 times the energy. Oh, that's how he justifies himself. And the same with when you pull it back with 3 times the amount of linear stretch. And like energy says, 3 times the stretch, 9 times the energy.
So again, he's saying 9 times the energy, and the fact is, though, 3 times the stretch is actually 9 times the amount of pressure in the rubber band. That's the whole point. You didn't get just 3 units of stretch in the rubber band. You actually got 9. That's the whole point. You were claiming it was only 3 units of energy you were collecting, when you were actually collecting 9.
Draft science says, no, it's not 3 times the stretch. When you actually measure this, we have 7.8 centimeters. So we start with 5 centimeters. Now we have 7.8, which is an extra 2.8.
I don't know where he got these numbers from, because they're not my numbers. I use 5. That's my numbers are right, so I don't know where he got his silly numbers from.
Which is 7 times the amount. So 7 times the amount of stretch. I mean, 7 times more stretch than this one. So 7 times more energy. Yeah, closer to 9 times as much. So this is how he justifies the quadratic increase of energy. Even though it's a linear.
So he just keeps saying, even though it's linear. So he keeps conceding the rubber band is stretching at this exponential rate. It's not proportional to the stretch of the centimeter mark. The centimeter doesn't, 2 centimeters is not twice the stretch in the rubber band. How can he miss that point? I mean, it's amazingly stupid. Well, it's always, this is just evidence from my side, right? So he makes all of this noise, says he's proven me wrong, claims all this crap, then he draws all this stuff, and he still can't get it right. Even though I explained it twice, he still can't get it right.
Even though it's a linear increase each time, 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters. So 1 unit of energy, 4 units of energy, 9 units of energy. It's because the total amount of stretch isn't twice as much and 3 times as much. It's 3.5 times as much and 7 times as much. And it keeps growing closer to the quadratic increase.
Yes, that's my argument. You're the one arguing that it's just twice the amount of stretch. That's what you said in your video. Amazing.
Than to a linear increase. Right? But so now here comes the debunking. So we have, when you pull back with 1 centimeter, right? When you pull a rubber band backwards with 1 centimeter, the total distance becomes 5.4, and we started with 5, so we have 0.4 centimeters of extra stretch. So this is now.
So again, how did he get 0.4? I just don't know where he got 0.4 from. How did he get 0.4, right? I mean, it's just nowhere close. 0.4 is not 0.99. I don't know how you get 0.4 when it's 0.99. 5 squared is 25. I mean, I guess he's saying the whole length, and so he's using 2.5. It still wouldn't be 0.4, would it? So I guess that's what he's doing. He's doing he's doing a 2.5. I was doing the whole rubber band would be 10 centimeters. All right, that's what he's doing. But it doesn't matter. The proportions are still the same. Twice the stretch, twice the pull on the bow is almost 4 times the stretch of the bow.
1 unit of energy. So now if we want to have twice the amount of energy, we have to add another 0.4 extra centimeters of stretch. So from 5 to 5.4, and if you want to add another 0.4, we would have to have a total amount of stretch of 5.8. So 2 units of energy would equal a total amount of stretch of 5.8. But then this linear distance wouldn't be.
So how is 5.8? You start with 0.04, and now you're talking about 0.8. 0.8 is twice the stretch. It's not twice the stretch. 0.08.
2 centimeter, it would be less. I've measured it, it would have to be 1.7. Right? The linear amount of distance would have to be 1.7 centimeters in order for this to be twice the amount of energy than this. I have demonstrated when I let the pendulum.
Oh, now he's just playing games with the number. He's going 1 point some other number of centimeters to try to claim that somehow it's not glaringly obvious that by his own measurements, he did it in centimeter measurements and calculated it as twice. 2 was twice 1, okay, when obviously 2 was 4.
Collide with twice the velocity, it produced exactly twice the amount of linear stretch. So the same with 3 times the energy. So if this is 1 unit of energy, then 3 times the energy would have to be 3 times this. So if we start with 5 centimeters, 3 times the energy would have to produce an extra stretch of this times 3, so 1.2. So 6.2. The total amount of distance would have to be 6.2 instead of 7.8.
So instead of doing actual right triangles, he's doing this whole big triangle, which isn't a right triangle. You can't do it that way, but whatever.
So 6.2. This is 6.2, which means that the total amount of linear distance would not have to be 3 centimeters, but way less. It would actually have to be only 1.9. Instead of 3 centimeters of linear stretch, of linear distance, it would only have to be 1.9 centimeters in order for this to be actually 3 times the energy. But Einstein says energy equals mass times velocity, right? Force equals double the force, double the motion, triple the force, triple the motion, right? So twice the amount of velocity, twice the amount of energy, 3 times the velocity, 3 times the energy, etc.
So he's saying you got perfect results, right? Without doing these calculations. And now he's trying to claim that his results are still the same. Like somehow they haven't been damaged, that they're somehow improved. They're more perfect now. Hilarious.
So if this is 1 unit of energy, if this is 1 unit of velocity, right, then twice the velocity, or 2 units of energy, should produce a linear distance of 1.7 instead of 2. And then 3 times the velocity, or 3 units of energy, should produce a linear increase of distance of 1.9 centimeters instead of 3 centimeters.
1.9 would be 3 times. Well, it'd have to be at least 3. I mean, he's saying that 2 centimeters, we already know the number. It's 3.84 versus 0.99. We know it's 3.84 times as much. So if you just reduce it a little tiny bit, then your number is going to be, it's still got to be over 3 times.
And that's absolutely not what happened in my experiment. I have demonstrated with my photo gate the velocities can't be denied. 3 times the velocity produced a stretch, a linear stretch of a distance very close to 3 times as much.
Okay, so he's still saying that somehow all he has to do is measure the linear distance, that line, and he doesn't have to pay any attention to how much energy is in the rubber band. Just bullshit. Complete bullshit. All right, so, I mean, just very disappointing that, he's not going to own up to anything.
Not 1 times as much. There we go.
And to finish, a little bit of non-mathematical theory. Simple explanation. Why the rubber band acts like a horizontal spring. The rubber band only cares about how far you pull it back, not about the triangle shape.
Okay, so isn't that just amazing? He just said it doesn't matter. This hypotenuse doesn't matter. This is the only thing that matters, how far you pull it back. When, I've absolutely proven, no, this hypotenuse matters. If this hypotenuse is 4 times more stretch, the rubber band stretched 4 times as much. So he's just denying the entire argument, denying Pythagorean theory. I mean, let's play that again. I mean, he's just denying the entire argument.
And to finish, a little bit of non-mathematical theory. Simple explanation. Why the rubber band acts like a horizontal spring. The rubber band only cares about how far you pull it back, not about the triangle shape. When you pull the middle of the rubber band back, you feel a force trying to pull it forward again. That force is horizontal.
All right, so again, it's just ridiculous. And it's horizontal. If you put a force meter on this rubber band, the force it will read at 2 pulls is 4 times the force. At 2 centimeters, it's going to read 4 times the force. It will not read twice the force. You lying sack of dirty, smelly shit. All right.
That force is what stops the pendulum, so the rubber band feels the pull in the backwards direction, not along the sides. The triangle shape is just a side effect. It does not determine energy. When the
it's just ridiculous. I mean, obviously the rubber band has stretched a great deal more, and that's all that matters. The force is in the rubber band. It's pulling the thing in. It can't pull it sideways because both rubber bands are pulling against each other. So all of the force is converted into a straight line in that direction. So it's just, this is just a bullshit evasion to somehow imply this angle changes something, because it changes nothing because there's another angle on the other side doing exactly the same thing. So all the force goes this one way, and it's 4 times, twice the distance, 4 times the force. Well, 3.85 times the force. You lying piece of shit.
rubber band forms a triangle, the 2 sides get longer. Yes, those side lengths grow in a curved, non-simple way, but the rubber band is not trying to fight that sideways length. It is trying to pull the middle back forward.
All right, so I should have just played this ending, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that somehow the rubber band isn't being stretched more, when of course it is being stretched more. It's just like you stretched it more. There's no doubt about it. You just, in fact, stretched the rubber band more than 2 units of distance because of that arrangement. I mean, it's just a lie to say the math says otherwise. That's exactly what the math says. That's exactly how the experiment works. What a liar.
Forward. That means the rubber band uses energy to pull horizontally. The sideways lengths are just geometry, not energy.
All right. The sideways lengths are where the rubber band is. That's the path the rubber band is traveling. For fuck's sake, how can it not affect the stretch of the rubber band when it's the path the rubber band is stretched on? Oh, I mean, it's just so dumb.
So, first 1 minute and 20 seconds of draft science babble.
I'm doing a response in sorts. I didn't watch.
All right, so I guess that was it, right? I don't know what happened to it. I thought there was a little more.
The rubber band is not trying to fight that sideways length. It is trying to pull the middle back forward. That means the rubber band uses energy to pull horizontally. The sideways lengths are just geometry, not energy.
All right, that was it.
So, first
All right, so I mean, just an amazing. I guess will save this video because it's just so dumb. I mean, that's just so fucking stupid to make the argument that the path the rubber band is on isn't longer. Of course, it's the longer path. It didn't do this short path. It did this longer path. I mean, it's just so fucking dumb. Come on, forced reality, say something like, yes, that was so fucking dumb. They won't say it, so it was so fucking dumb. I can't, you people are just of no use at all to me. I ask for a very tiny thing and you can't provide me any kind of nothing. All right, 8 of you. Okay, well, that should be enough. Yes, that was dumb. Thank you. You could say it was really, really dumb. Really, really, really stupid that he actually made that video and thought he could get away with saying something that stupid, that the force actually obeys this line and doesn't obey this line. Yeah, the force only obeys this. The force doesn't obey the line the rubber band is actually on. God, that was dumb. Alright, so at least I feel vindicated. I can't help that he doesn't agree with Pythagorean theory. But again, they would have kept doing these experiments, right? They would have kept thinking you could get away with this. Well, I stretched it back twice, like a bow, Oh, I pulled the bow back twice as far. Obviously, bows don't work that way. You go twice as far back, you're really going 4 times back. It's a real argument, and did anybody show up and say they can't do that? Did any of their commenters point out, well, that's bow and arrow physics, and, you can't do that pulling back 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. It doesn't work. It's not how a bow works. No, they didn't do that. So it really is, it just shows these people don't know what they're talking about. They're so arrogant, so obnoxious, and they can't see these little defects in experiments. But I'm just surprised that he would double down on just something so goddamn obviously. It's an oversight. We all didn't notice it at first. I didn't notice it at first. I did say, okay, so fairness to me, I am pretty smart. So when he did his first video where he used rubber bands to measure distance, I did actually say, I'm not sure that you can do that. That the linear motion is equal to the tangential motion of the rubber band. So I actually did bring it up, but I just said I'm not sure. And it wasn't until 6 days ago that I said, well, maybe I ought to actually do the math and see. And that's when I found out, oh yeah, the math clearly says you can't do that. Well, the important point is let's see what he does. His whole experimental results are garbage now, in the sense that they prove me right. So let's see if he puts up a video claiming, yes, I did prove Gary right. So in spite of claiming I proved Leibniz right, no, I actually proved Gary right. Let's see if he has that integrity. I'm waiting for the four rubber band one. Do the since he's got this setup, right? Put 4 rubber bands. Put 1 rubber band on and see how much velocity you get, and then put 4 rubber bands on, move it the same distance, and then see what you get. Because that experiment will work. I mean, it won't work in the terms of they're not going to get twice the velocity. It's certainly not going to work that way. Well, like I said, I did the math. I mean, it's 99 for the first unit of distance, then it's 385 for the second unit of distance, then it's 830 for the third unit of distance, and it's 14 for the fourth unit of distance. I mean, it's 14 times the stretch. Pulling it back just 4 centimeters is 14 times the extra stretch in the rubber band. Well, they're literally corrupting the numbers. Second squared, per second, 9.8 meters per second squared. It's not Newton's formula. Newton never said it, never wrote it, and didn't imply it, never said anything like it. And yet they claim that's Newton's equation. I mean, that's not playing with numbers. That's perverting the numbers. I did find a guy today who actually left a big long comment on a gravity video, so I checked him out a little bit. But he was actually making my argument that Newton's gravity equation is flawed. And I'm not saying Newton used this particular equation, so that's why maybe it doesn't matter. But, you know, they do the gravity thing as the force equals G. All right, and then they do the masses, you know, M1 and M2 times each other, and then R squared. And this multiplication here doesn't make any sense, because the gravity for one object, and the R here means the distance between these two masses. It doesn't mean a radius. But the problem is, you know, maybe that's what saves it, okay, is this bigger distance. And that makes the multiplication make sense, is this larger distance. But I mean, the simpler way to do the equation is just to concede that the same equation can be written as just Gm over R squared. Big G, I guess you have to say. That'll give you the 9.8, you know, meters per second over 1 second, obviously. So that'll tell you what the rate is on the surface, and obviously if you know one rate, you know all the rates. So you know, you can calculate any rate. So obviously if two objects were in gravity, you would find out that our distance is the distance now not to the surface but to the other body. So you take the distance to the center of the other body, and then vice versa, this distance to that distance is the second force. So the first force is the pulling force of mass 1, and the second one is the pulling force of mass 2 on 1, and they obviously would add in this case. You would just add those two. Oh, fuck. Sorry about that. All right. So yeah, so to me this can't be quite right, because you can do it this way and be sure that you've added the two forces. That the force of the pull on one is going to be just added to the pull the other one has on the opposite one, and you're going to just add those two pulling forces, and that's going to be the total force. So maybe when he did his calculations, he was just using this form of the equation, and he didn't bother with this thicker form of the equation, because these will give two different answers, I believe. I mean, I guess I should do the actual calculations and see if they come out different. But it doesn't seem right. So I'm just assuming this other guy did do the calculations. But it was just nice to see somebody else who sees a problem with this multiplication here, because you're essentially multiplying the forces rather than adding the forces. There's no reason for the two forces to multiply. I guess I could play a little bit of that old guy's videos. Well, he's old. He's younger than me. You know. Let's see. Where is it? That's me. That's an integrity test. That ain't right. That ain't right. That ain't right. That ain't right. And it must be here somewhere. Oh yeah, here's his channel anyway. So, it didn't put it up for whatever reason. So let me switch to that. There it is down there. Okay, gonna make it a lot smaller. So anyway, I sent him an email. Just because he's an engineer type, you know, maybe he'll be willing to do some videos. Oh, I made the mistake of putting it in the anything instead of the other thing. So my bad. So maybe we'll play his most recent video. It says the secret to cosmological gravity, but I know I'm not gonna. He has a polarized theory, but it's, you know, it's not. It doesn't have any forces in it, so it can't possibly work. But anyway, he doesn't have any mechanism to create the repulsion. He just assumes there's pluses and minuses, but he doesn't have any mechanism for them to see each other as pluses and minuses. They're just declared magnets or whatever. And obviously I would see a flaw in that simplicity. Can't be that simple.
Hello again everybody, and welcome to another in a series of short videos I'm doing promoting a radical new hypothesis that challenges the standard model of both quantum mechanics and cosmology. In this video I'd like to try and put a different perspective on gravity and why I believe this has eluded being solved for such a long time, and why physicists are finding it very difficult to try and rationalize what gravity is. And you know, when you think of gravity,
Okay, so I would argue he's got that argument exactly backwards. So the problem is that they can't irrationalize gravity. That is, they can't match it to quantum woo. So it doesn't fit with entanglements and superpositions and all of that shit mechanics. Okay, but the problem is that their definition of gravity is perfectly coherent in the sense that it creates the inverse square law. It creates exactly what you want to create, but it does it with nothing. There's no mechanism. That's the problem with their theory. And the real problem, I would argue, that, you know, everybody should notice is that obviously this bent geodesic can't just be a bent geodesic because it creates motion. It has to be considered a force because it causes things to move and it makes heat in the universe. So if you're going to have conservation of momentum in the universe, you can't have some mechanism that's creating motion and heat and then claim you have conservation in the universe, because gravity would be constantly creating more motion and heat, constantly creating it. Something's traveling all by itself going this way. If it falls into gravity, it's going to gain momentum. Okay, it's still going this way, but it's also going that way, and now there's another hypotenuse. Well, hypotenuse. So you can understand that the actual, you know, if I throw a baseball, the baseball does have its velocity this way, and it's going to gain a velocity this way. And those two velocities are going to add, they're going to multiply as vectors. That is, they're going to become a third vector that's actually greater than the longest vector that it had previously. So it's now going to have actually more energy when it hits the ground. It's going to have a component going that way and a component going that way, and that way is going to be a longer vector than the original vector. So it will add energy. So anything that hits the Earth has been created by bent space. Bent space made the momentum. So do you see the problem with their theory? Isn't that it's doesn't fit with quantum mechanics. The problem is it doesn't fit as a physical theory because there's no mechanism to account for the increase in the thermodynamics of the universe. They're claiming the universe is going to die a heat death, and here they have an engine in every single sun, every single planet, every single piece of matter is an engine creating motion, creating momentum. And if you're creating momentum, you're obviously creating kinetic energy, right? I mean, I can't create momentum, free momentum, without creating free kinetic energy. I mean, the MV is in the kinetic energy formula. So it's a huge, catastrophic flaw. And that's the real problem with gravity, is that it's not a physical mechanism. It shouldn't even be called physics. It's a religious, spiritual idea. A bent geodesic made out of nothing. That's a religious concept. That's a holy frickin' ghost.
Gravity, I would suggest that 90% of people just think of an attractive force, which it is. But the problem is that
right, so we know attractive force is kind of deceptive, is obviously I can create something that looks like attraction by just pushing somebody into somebody else, and somebody could look at that if they didn't see me push and say, look, they were attracted. Right, but no, if they saw me pushing, they'd know I pushed. So it's no point in talking in those terms, but it's a real question is whether something is falling into a lack of pressure or what is it falling into? Why is it falling? Is there a lack of pressure on the inside, or is there extra pressure on the outside? And the obvious argument is, well, there's no reason for extra pressure on the outside, so there must be a low pressure on the inside.
It's then challenged that it's not a force, it's due to the curvature of space.
The curvature of nothing.
Well, unfortunately, the description they give for that is will only work in a two-dimensional frame. Many of you may have seen it on...
Yeah, well, it'll work in 3 dimensions, but not by their drawing. I mean, you obviously can't use a bent fabric and use gravity to cause the bending. But you could just use spokes on a wheel. I mean, you could just make it a 3-dimensional radial pulling force. So you could just make it like a vacuum cleaner. You could say in the center of the sun there's a vacuum cleaner and it's pulling space. And the space on the outside is pulling in evenly from all 3 dimensions. But obviously that's silly. That's a silly that's a talking fish explanation. It's not a reasonable theory. It's an unreasonable theory.
Science videos where they spread a rubber sheet out over something, then put a heavy ball in the middle of it, and then roll a smaller ball round, and it combines with the one, the heavier ball. I don't believe that has got anything to do with gravity.
Right, and I likewise, that demonstration is deceptive in so many ways. I mean, first you're using gravity to demonstrate gravity, which is cheating. But it actually doesn't work. Because of the friction, the whole experiment is distorted. Because things won't fall into orbits. They won't spiral into the Earth. That won't happen. They'll either fly straight back out of the experiment, okay, they'll go through the well and fly out the other side, or they'll crash into the sun. And the only way something can get into an orbit is it has to interact with something before it hits the sun. It has its velocity changed. And if its velocity doesn't get changed, it crashes right into the sun or it escapes. Those are the only 2 options. There's no capture. There's only escape and crashing for real gravitational objects. They either miss or they hit, unless their velocity gets changed.
Gravity whatsoever. my perspective is, and what I've put in the thumbnails, is that gravity is a force, but it's not just one force, it's two forces, two opposing forces. One's a repulsive force and the other is an attractive force. And these are produced by, like I've got the title, by monopoles.
Right, so there's forces, but there's no explanation for how they're generated. So you're saying your monopoles are generating force. Are they doing it by expelling little pieces of momentum? How are they generating, how are they communicating with each other? So you have to have a mechanism of communication.
And I believe, and the basis, the cornerstone of my hypothesis is that everything that exists in the universe is composed of these two monopole particles. Say one is a positively charged monopole and the other one is a negatively charged.
Yeah, so that's just the electron and proton. Frankly, I don't know why you don't like electrons and protons, but I think they've been well established to exist, and well established to exist in the circumstance that in the nucleus is where the heavy protons are stuck because they're heavier, and the electrons, the extra, to have the same number of positive and negative charges in the universe, you have to have the extra electrons. You have a 2-to-1 proton advantage inside of the nucleus. So you have twice as many protons as electrons in the nucleus, and orbiting you have the rest of the electrons. The rest of the electrons are free or attached to a nucleus. That does work. I don't need to fix that part of physics. Now that's not a, physics still thinks there's something called a neutron, okay, but frankly it's just an electron and a proton, very close to each other. It's a dipole. So he's talking about monopoles, but the nucleus is made out of dipolar objects, and you could say tripolar and quadpolar and whatever 6 would be, sexpolar.
Monopole. You will never find the positive monopoles on their own. They will always be encompassed by the negatively charged particles, because what I claim is producing what I propose is cosmological gravity, is
so he's describing some idea that the entire universe is full of electrons, negative things, and that only these atoms, these nucleuses, have the positive in them. But then you would need to have such an asymmetry in the number of positives versus the number of electrons, and it just doesn't really go anywhere, in my opinion, as a reasonable explanation. And of course, you have to have a mechanism that makes them identifiable as a charge. How do they know what their charge is?
Repulsive force of gravity. So, if you can imagine the whole universe, everything that we can see, all around us, there's a cloud of extremely, unbelievably small monopole particles called harvatrons, and they form this cloud.
All right, so whatever a cloud would be, fog would be a better term, wouldn't it? They'd be evenly spaced and evenly dense because they all have the same repulsion, except where they're near positives, where they would start to increase their velocity towards the positive somehow and be thicker around the positive somehow. Yeah, okay. But yes, again, you have this huge disproportion in the density of these particles, and I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. It certainly doesn't fit with atomic theory, what we've noticed about electrons and protons.
Fill in every available space in the universe other than baryonic matter. Now, obviously, we know that like charges repel. So these particles are trying to repel each other in every direction. Now,
So the sensible thing is at least he's creating a pressure to be pushing things into the earth. The problem again is that it's real energy, and you have to recognize that we know forces exist like radiation and gamma rays and cosmic rays, clumps of matter moving fast, photons at high frequency. We know all those things exist, so how do they play a role in this?
my claim is that these particles are in fact dark matter.
So I don't know why you're playing with dark matter. I mean, it's just they made it up. And it's all based on their understanding of the gravitational mechanisms inside of a galaxy. And the argument is, you're even making the argument that they don't even have their gravitational theory quite right. So he wrote a whole big paper on how gravity is, the formula is not quite right, this multiplication thing. And yet he's believing that dark matter has some kind of credibility. And it's all based on them assuming that galaxies are collapsing rather than expanding. Assuming that it's a solar system gravity, when obviously these galaxies have arms. There's as much mass on one side of the arm as the other side. So it's really, polar in the sense that it's got two things rotating around each other. It's not rotating around a center of mass. It's rotating around a center of gravity. It falls on a stick. The symmetry is in their opposing existence. And so it's not the same gravitational theory when if there was a Vulcan, okay, and we were closer to each other, the idea would be is we'd end up orbiting each other.
And the repulsive force that they produce is dark energy. And the dark energy is one of the two forces of gravity.
So anyway, so that's a bad start. I'm just saying, if you're going to be a dissident, and you're going to say, well, physics doesn't sound right, a lot of it sounds wooey and crazy, it's probably not a great idea to accept their strangest theories. I mean, the ones with the least evidence. Those are the ones you really shouldn't go anywhere near, because they haven't even gotten these basic ones right.
That we have. And if you consider it logically, if gravity was just an attractive force, then everything that exists in the universe, all the actual physical matter that we know of, the baryonic matter, would gradually all combine together to form one huge big lump.
Well, yeah, that would be the consequence, but they've given everything momentum. So the fact is everything's still separating as if in an explosion. But clearly, if it wasn't, all right, then you could make this argument that over time, it's inevitable that everything would finally attract to everything. So it's just a matter of time to argue that, I've argued that the universe is just, it collapses, it expands, it collapses, it expands. But clearly the spacing of objects means that whatever attraction is going to take place, it's going to take place over a very long period of time. So it's going to take a long time for the whole universe to condense.
Plainly, that's not happening.
We don't know what's happening. We can't see any of that time scale. So there's just no way to make any statements about that. They're only calculating, all of these motions. They're not actually seeing motion.
So if we look out into space, whether it's now, 100 years ago, or whatever, in general, you might get a certain amount of matter combining or whatever. But generally speaking, the planets and the stars and the galaxies that exist all tend to stay in their relative positions.
Right, so we don't have that. I mean, there's no point in trying to measure it in thousands of years. The motion isn't enough. There's not enough motion. We can't see the motion. It's too tiny compared to the distance we're looking. We're looking at something 100 light years away, or something. You can't see its motion because it's too infinitesimally small. It's not enough enough degrees of motion to be visible.
For that to happen, you've got to have a mechanism that will keep them in their relative positions. And I propose that there's this cloud of negatively charged particles throughout the whole universe.
So again, everything doesn't plow through them. You got a whole drag argument. I mean, this is going to get very complicated very fast to just say there's stuff when it looks like there's no stuff. I mean, obviously empty space looks pretty empty. I'd concede the only thing going through it is a bunch of photons. It's a lot of photons. Okay, it's a lot of energy going through the empty space, but there's not a lot of matter in the empty space. But anyway, we played a little. Whatever. We'll see if he gets back to me. He's a probably retired engineer, and so maybe he likes doing experiments. So maybe we could see if he'll do some experiments or something. Can't hurt to ask. All right. So there's just no participation tonight. You're all quite silent, unfortunately. I'll probably depart soon. 7. Yeah, we're down to 7. So yeah, that's just not viable. I got to find some way to give away tickets to the show. Guys, to glue $10 bills to the tickets. Come watch the show. Pay you $10. Ladies' night? Maybe I should have ladies' night. Maybe that would work. Free drinks for all the girls. Shit. Yeah, shit. It's frustrating. Let's see. Okay. So I'll give you 2 minutes. If nobody can say anything, then I'll get the hell out of here. Feel like crap anyway. I don't know why I'm having a crappy period, but crappy period. I needed to go a few minutes ago. Yeah, I understand. See you next time. Thanks. Okay, yeah, that's nice enough. Thank you. So let's see, closing remarks. Again, the glaring thing is that there obviously is in these experiments lots of reason to doubt them, because there are conflicting experiments. It's all kind of mushy and foggy and very unclear, and everyone who loves science should be saying, we need more experiments, we need more experiments, we need better experiments, we need better experiments, and you can't get them to say the words. Well, maybe I'll read what I wrote to this guy. I guess there's no reason to keep it private. It's not all that special or anything. Let's see. Tony, I also think the substance of conventional physics is bunk, that they almost haven't got anything right. Saw your comment on a video regarding adding M1 and M2 rather than multiply. I had also drawn the same conclusion, that it's a bit strange that Newton got that wrong. watching a couple of your videos, I can't say I like your alternative theories. You know, I had to be honest. But I do like that you're challenging the existing ones. It seems we might have some common interest in proving some existing science wrong. Of particular interest to me is proving the time dependency of gravity. I mean, that's just so important for people to understand that you collect gravity in units of time. It's a constant force, and all constant forces, whether it's a river pushing your boat, whether it's wind pushing you, whether it's a sandblaster, whether it's a paint sprayer, whether it's a water hose, it all depends on how long you're in the spray. All of them work that way. And gravity's doing the same thing. It's a spray. Leonard Susskind teaches it as water. He's teaching it as a fluid, for fuck's sake. Okay? And all fluids move a certain volume over a certain amount of, over a place at the same rate, the same volume over the same space. And that's a constant force. And so if gravity is a constant force, it can only be collected in units of time. It cannot be collected in units of distance. Anyway, and proving the work energy theory to be a fable. Anyway, I have thousands of videos. Just do it. So, and I gave them a link to my channel and the websites. Let's see. Don't know whether you do any experimental work, but I am particularly interested in finding someone willing to construct a couple of quality experiments. Best regards and such. So anyway, another effort to communicate with other people that will likely fail dismally, but no harm in keeping trying, correct? Yes, no harm in trying, I suppose. I'll offend him in some way, and he'll become a hater, and it'll all be awful. But whatever. It is difficult doing this work. People are just so evil. Oh, let me see if there's any comments on Dopey Dispar's video. Alright, so the John Walker guy seems to always be a whore for math, and he didn't do any math. So the vector diagram could provide some clarification. Some vectors oppose each other. Well, obviously these vectors aren't opposing each other in any way. It's a fucking triangle. There's no opposing vector. Alright, and so let's see what Brozo says. Oh, he writes a whole big pile of shit, as usual. I'm not suggesting you bother trying, but I suppose theoretically you could eliminate this desperate geometrical argument by stretching bands lengthwise. Yeah, I guess you could do that, couldn't you? Instead of, in a bow and arrow style manner. Tricky as it would be to implement. Yeah, then you're just getting into machines again, like your solder sucker. You're getting into little plastic parts and other kinds of mechanisms. And we don't want to do that if you can avoid it. Why not just use a fucking spring? That would be a good question, right? Why not use a fucking decent spring? Although you've probably done this way before or similar. Forgive me for losing track of everything you've done. Okay, i.e. the approximate equivalent of continuing your diagrams until the triangle sides are so long that it might as well not be a triangle anymore, because the stretch of the sides would be near enough to the same as the stretch you've been measuring. Yes, eventually you will, by the time you get to 10 centimeters, your hypotenuse now will grow exactly the same as, it will be exactly proportional. Okay, but obviously in the beginning it's exactly the opposite. So this is like the circle argument. At the bottom it's very flat, and at the side it's exactly the opposite. So the same thing is going to happen. As you change, it's going to reach a midpoint where the two things will be proportional, and then they'll start to get unproportional again in the reverse direction. And presumably the results would be the same because it would be equivalent compression and stretching of springs. Yes, well, exactly. The more narrow the bow, the smaller the base of the triangle, the less difference between the length and the hypotenuse, obviously. So if you can make the length of the triangle very, very tiny, then you can eliminate this problem. So good on bro for at least bringing that up. You know, so the simple solution would be, instead of having this big wide thing, have a very narrow. Okay, so allow your little thing to come into a very narrow gap, and then pull the rubber band back this way, and that way this line and this line will be very close to the same line. Let's see if you can see that. No, you can't. So I have to undo this. Right, you can't see it anyway, but it's way off the screen. So the idea is to narrow these points, make this distance smaller. So instead of this wide distance, have a much narrower distance, and then these two lengths will be closer to each other. They won't be the same, but they'll be closer. A lot closer. Let's see, I am recalling my early crude experiments to test his 10-ton train 5-ton versus 5-ton idea, and all the better experiments anyone followed up with, garbage experiments. There we expected 1.4 the compression because the mass was being halved when the velocity doubled. Right, and that's what happens. If you've already done it stretching bands lengthwise, maybe it's worth pointing out to get this excuse he's using out of the way. Well, it's not an excuse, and it completely changes the results of his experiment. So let's just understand, he's already done the experiment wrong. He's claiming he got perfect results confirming his theory based on those wrong mathematical conclusions. So the fact is, he proved me right in the experiment. So he was claiming to prove me wrong, but he did the calculation wrong, so that means I was right. And he should point that out first. You get it? He should point that out first. So he can then make up a new excuse. Well, again, the excuse is that obviously this is a real issue. He didn't pay any attention to it. It's very real. It's just an absolute fact that it makes a huge difference. And what are you doing but defending the lie? Defending that somehow I'm the bad guy because I noticed it's not correct. And somehow, you're conceding that maybe I'm right, that it's incorrect, and then you're just pretending there's no problem. When, of course, his experiment was a problem. He didn't prove what he claimed he proved. Any normal person wouldn't need any further explanation. Enough said. I mean, amazing. What explanation was provided? He didn't provide any explanation. He said the fact that that line is longer doesn't mean the rubber band stretched more, when obviously the rubber band stretched more than he's claiming. I mean, how can you be so fucking dim-witted? Oh, Whatho puts in a comment. That's, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Farley or something? Do you honestly think he will accept the results no matter what anybody does? So again, the argument is the Pythagorean theory applicable? So is it your claim it's not applicable? It doesn't mean anything? No one should pay any attention to the fact that the rubber band is actually stretched more than he thinks? That shouldn't be a relevant fact. The fact that the rubber band is stretched more than he's claiming, that doesn't matter. I mean, you people are just so amazing. He made a mistake. Just concede, okay, you overlooked something, it's kind of an important detail, you got to fix it. Instead of saying that, you do this shit. Anyway, he's been stringing you guys along for 10 years and you still fall for his tricks. Okay, this is a trick by me. Pointing out that I didn't think about it, I didn't notice it, and then I said, okay, well, yeah, I really should pay attention to that because I really don't have a good answer. I mean, you look at it and you say, yeah, it can't make much of a difference, But yeah, you kind of know that, well, if they can't be the same length, it's got to be a different length. It's a hypotenuse. So how can it be the same exact proportional length? It can't really grow the same proportional length. And so, yeah, you do the math and you find out, yeah, it doesn't work. You can't do that. You can't do the experiment that way. It's deceptive. So instead of pointing out, oh, sorry, Dispar, you deceived people, try again. Don't deceive people. That's not a good thing to do. No, they do this rhetoric where they insult me. Because I discovered the truth, I get insulted. I mean, they're just so, you can just smell the unfairness. It reeks. They can't ever, ever, ever Be honest. It's disgusting. I mean, it's just, again, it's just, I mean, I never realized that I was so right. I mean, I always didn't much like human civilization much, didn't think much of many people, but I thought the core of most people was decent. And I was just so far off. The core of most people is absolute rancid shit. It's just proven in the statistics, so to speak. Even people who say they respect and admire science, and they'll turn it into absolute religious shit. If some dislikable person, is making a claim, it's just amazing what they'll do out of just pettiness, just absolute pettiness. All right, so that's enough. I shall surrender till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Oh, down to 5 viewers. That's terrible. Anyway, until the next time. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.